It's preparing to go live. So this is our first time of going live and
on YouTube.
Okay, on YouTube, yes. Preparing to go live. So this is our first time of that's not going to live and give me 1 minute, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hi, it's Pamela.
Okay, there was, I don't know if you guys could hear it, but I could, and there was a significant lag.
Yes.
So I was hearing myself moments after I said something. All right, so, and let me just. Okay. So anyways, thanks for attending our college planning workshop. Today, you are going to learn about how to pay for college without going broke. And so first, to tell you why you should listen to us, I want everyone to say a few words about who they are and what they're here. George.
Hi, George Gonzalez. Thank you for being here. We are committed to help individuals, business owners, professionals, and their families to initiate and improve their overall income and protection programs while reducing their tax liability through comprehensive solutions, which puts more money into your bottom line. We are specialists when it comes to college planning, retirement planning, and tax planning. We accomplish this by working with a team of advisors and business alliance partners on a variety of financial plans with the goal to provide income for life with tax advantage treatment. We help people plan their life, accomplish their dreams, and preserve their legacy.
Hi, I'm Ken Tolchin, co-founder of Green Education. Small crowd tonight. We're just as pleased that you're here, regardless. A smaller crowd than usual. I guess it's that pre-holiday weekend, busy lives that everybody has. But we're happy to share with you tonight, and you'll get a lot of personalized information and be able to ask all the questions that you want. With a career track that includes public accounting, controllership, insurance, and financial services, I've spent 30 years helping people with their financial well-being. There's a looming retirement crisis in our country, and my primary focus over the last number of years has been to educate clients on the institutional threats to surviving their retirement years and employing strategies to protect their assets and create a lifetime stream of income. So why college planning? Well, college planning goes hand in hand with retirement planning, as many people raid their retirement funds to pay for college, and we aim to assist you in preventing that. But the story is more personal for me. 15 years ago, when my son entered college, my wife and I made all the classic mistakes and cost ourselves literally tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship money from a school that's fairly generous with awards. We got nothing, nada, zilch. I'll spare you the details. It's too painful to rehash, but we didn't know any better. That is my passion. That is why I am here today, to make sure you understand the system and help put you in a position to use it to your advantage.
And my name is Barbara Miller, and I'm an expert in admissions and student positioning. And I've helped thousands of families save tens of thousands of dollars on the cost of college and guide their students to their dream fit school. And since March of 2012, I've worked in presenting over 300 of these free educational workshops on how to navigate through the maze of college planning without any financial, emotional, and mental stress. Now, while I have not previously worked in the education arena, I have spent over 35 years in recruiting and human resources. And let me just point out that getting noticed by schools is parallel to getting noticed by a corporation. You're competing for a spot, and of course, they're looking for the best candidate that is the best fit for that spot. I provide my expertise with career research and selection, student positioning, Test prep, mainly determining which is the best fit test for your student, and school selection and filling out the applications. We provide a step-by-step guide to even creating resumes, recommendations, admissions essays, and admissions applications. So I'd like to actually hear why you're here. During the presentation, I'm going to be asking you also to participate in our one question polls. But to start off with, I'd like you to unmute yourself, or if you would be more comfortable putting your information in chat, just take a moment to unmute yourself and share with us what your biggest concerns are. Chandrell?
Hello, everyone. I appreciate George and Ken for inviting me here tonight on the webinar. But I do have a son. He's going to be turning 11 years old next month. And I was interested in hearing the information and what you all have to offer in regards to hearing the information. So that way I'll be able to be, ready for whenever he's about to go to college. So with that being said, I'm just happy to be here and to just hear the information of whatever you all have to offer.
Excellent. And do you have other students or just the one?
I just have one child.
Okay. I shouldn't say just one. One is still a full-time job.
It is.
Sarah, would you care to share your concerns and story? Sarah? All right. How about Woodland? Would you care to share your concerns and what interested you and brought you here? Well, hopefully you won't be this shy as we're going through this, because we do really want you to be participating when we do ask at least the polls, so that it will help you. And if I know a little bit more about you, I can make sure that I'm covering the things that are a concern for you. Okay, so also another reason that you're here is because you want your student choosing the right school for the right reasons and at the right price. And that's what we do. The information is general in nature, seeing that everyone's personal financial situation is complex and very different. And due to this, we do offer a free initial consultation to those of you attending tonight, where we'll take 60 minutes of one-on-one time, review your specific and individual situation, and see if we're fit. Meeting, if you come in to see us, is going to be approximately 60 minutes. During the initial evaluation, we're going to discuss your student, where you currently are in the process, and what your goals, objectives, and obstacles are. When we get to the end of the conversation, if you like what we discuss and sounds like a good fit for your family, then we'll discuss the next step to determine if we can bring you aboard. After all, college is a huge investment. The process is complex with several hidden steps and obstacles along the way. And our goal is to help you achieve a great outcome for your student and for your finances. One of the other things we do, our other goal is to educate the community through our community outreach program. We're trying to do these workshops and educate people as much as humanly possible. So if you enjoy the information and you're part of a group or organization or company or PTA or band membership or anything like that, where you've got a group and you want us to come out, just bring that to our attention. We'll arrange that for you as well. And we are also going to be having some future workshops on IRMA and Social Security, long-term care, financial aid changes, and more. So keep an eye out for our future emails. Now, we've got a lot of information to cover. As you can see already, I talk a little bit fast, and we're going to actually cover about 3 hours of information in under 60 minutes. And at the end, we will have a question and answer session if you have any additional questions about something I haven't covered. So we're going to start with the beginning. Obviously, starting at the beginning, let's look at the current college cost landscape. And as you can see, the current cost for 4 years at an in-state public university is about $84,000 minimum. And the cost for 4 years at an elite private university can reach well over $320,000. That's with the cost of attendance projected to increase about 5% each and every year. And you also have to take into account that only 43.7% of freshmen end up actually graduating in 4 years. And so if they're going a 5th or 6th year, obviously your figures are going to skyrocket. Let's suppose your student's interested in one of those out-of-state public universities, like UCLA or Michigan or Texas. You can expect the cost to be approximately $45,000 to $60,000 per year. Now, these schools are aware that they're popular and they don't need to offer scholarships or money to entice students to apply or to attend. And they do not give any money, any need-based aid for out-of-state students. And keep in mind, this is all for one child. So here's our #1 poll. Let me just, actually, I somehow missed this one. So I'll post this one first. I know that we do have 11-year-olds, so I'm guessing middle school. And if you could just answer the poll, what grade your students are in. If you have 2 students, obviously pick 2. I've got 2 answers. Okay, excellent. So our next one is, and hold on one second, I'm just looking for, there we go. So now here's our second poll. How many of you have 100,000 or 320,000 put aside for college per child? Excellent. Okay. So here's the good news. So most people think, and a lot of professionals too, that college planning is just saving for college. In fact, good college planning is all about saving on the cost of college. So when it comes to college planning, now, while we're consistent in the strategies we use, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Your family's going to use a unique combination and blend of strategies. But if you know the ins and outs of the college process and you better understand it, then you can work within that framework and you can turn the process around so you're taking advantage of it as opposed to the process taking advantage of you. So let's do this. Let's now talk about the basics that you need to know. First of all, I always like showing this is the simplified version of the current student financial aid delivery system. You can see how complex and confusing this is. So how many of you feel like you can navigate this? Yeah, me neither. I feel your pain. So it's actually all determined, though, by a very simple financial aid formula. So we're going to start with some key terms. What you're going to see before you is the basic formula for financial aid. And I speak in acronyms, or as I like to say, alphabet soup. So here's the big formula. First of all, cost of attendance. And the acronym for that is COA. That is the retail sticker price. So each year, every school must supply the Department of Education with their published rate. And the cost of attendance is going to cover hard costs and soft costs. Hard costs are those costs that you're going to be billed for twice a year, typically your tuition and fees and room and board. Soft costs, those are the ones that are variable costs, such as your books and supplies, transportation, personal expenses, miscellaneous. This is the worst case scenario. We do not decide on what schools will be affordable based on the cost of attendance. And relax, I'm going to show you how to calculate what your cost will be. And that's the number that you need to know. And that number is the Student Aid Index, which you will hear as the term SAI. Now, for those following the news, this was formerly called the Expected Family Contribution, or EFC. They changed it in December. It's now called the Student Aid Index, or SAI. And it takes into account parents' incomes and assets and students' income and assets, rolls them into a proprietary formula, similar to your FICO score for your credit, and calculates a number that they believe is an amount of money that you as a family can afford to invest annually in education for that student. So how many of you, let me just, hold on one second. Let me grab this one. All right, so our next poll is, how many of you have actually calculated your expected family contribution? Okay. So here's the thing. I guarantee you, when we're done with this, if you just put in EFC, you'll probably have about 20 financial aid calculators come up that will help you figure that out. And I have one more person, but that's okay. Let's continue. So here's the rest of the formula. You're going to subtract your expected contribution from the cost of attendance. That is going to leave you your need. And the need, hold on a second. There we go. That is the amount of money of financial aid that you are eligible for. Now, we keep talking about the Student Aid Index. On December 21st, Congress passed the FAFSA Simplification Act, which did away with the expected family contribution and replaced it with the Student Aid Index. Colleges are going to use the Student Aid Index to determine your eligibility for financial aid, and the Student Aid Index is the minimum you are expected to contribute toward college costs. Now, here's an important fact. They do not take into account any debt, such as your bills, car payments, credit card debt, taxes you may owe, none of that. They also do not consider if you have more than one student in college anymore. Here's the significant changes to the financial aid formula. Your first allowance is your income protection allowance. Department of Education allows a portion of your income to be exempt from the financial aid formula. And this is going to increase a little, partially because of the fact that the formula no longer makes allowances for having more than one student in college. The next, your assets are actually going to take a double hit. First of all, the asset protection allowance is going to decrease, whereas the assessment is going to increase from 5.6% to more than double at 12%. Your student income protection, that's going to increase from 6420 to 9410. A little bit of good news there. Keep in mind, any money over the 9410 is going to be assessed at 50%. That's whether the student's dependent or independent. This is partially as a result of some wealthy families out there and emancipating their students so that the student becomes independent and qualifies for financial aid. Oh, and the student asset assessment is going to remain at 20 to 25%. That means, of course, any funds in the student names are going to be assessed at 20 to 25%. Okay, now let's look at the actual costs. We're going to compare a public university to a private university. So imagine you're a family with $100,000 in total income plus $100,000 in assets plus Florida prepaid. Your initial student aid index is about $25,000, but we employ some strategies and lower it to $15,000. So now you have the established need of $15,000, anything above $15,000. That makes sense? Okay. Doesn't mean you're going to get anything. Schools are not required to cover your need. So there's three critical questions to which you have to know the answers. First question, obviously, is what percentage of need does that school offer? Ideally, you're looking for a school that's offering 100% of need or close to that. As you can see from this example, that even though we have $7,000 in financial need, the school does not meet all your need, leaving some unmet need. And who pays that? Well, you do. And the aid doesn't have to be gift aid. Many schools factor student loans and even Parent Plus loans into providing you with aid. So the second question you need to ask is, what's the breakdown between gift aid and self-help? Self-help aid, that includes work study and loans, whether they're Perkins loans, student direct loans, or Parent Plus loans. And if you have one school that, for in this example, gives 60% gift and 40% self-help, while you have another school that gives you 75% gift and 25% help, you can see you're going to pay less, and sometimes significantly less, at one compared to the other. Now, if you'll notice, we only talked about need-based aid. One of the reasons I don't include merit aid or bright futures when determining our out-of-pocket costs is because neither is guaranteed. Bright futures, which many of you are depending on, almost had major cuts and changes. One of them being that your student's Bright Future Scholarship would be reduced by the amount it would cost by the number of AP, IB, ACE, or dual enrollment credits that your student earned. Now, of course, we devoted significant time and effort to prevent this, but you need to be aware that that Bright Futures may not be around by the time your student goes to college. All right, so let's look at a private college, and the cost of attendance, as you can see, is almost triple that of what the public university example. But we're going to do the same thing. We're going to subtract our student aid index. Obviously, a financial need is due to the difference in cost of the public university is much higher. But look at what happens when you see the aid package. The entire financial need is met. So there is no gap to add to the cost of your student aid index of $15,000. Furthermore, the private school gives 97% gift aid and only 3% self-help. So as it turns out, because of the big difference in the ability of the private school to pay and to meet your financial need, the school that appeared to be out of reach for your family is in fact going to be less out of pocket. Now, I told you 3 questions. So the third question you have to ask is, what's the average length of time to graduate for that school? Our goal is we want your student graduated successful and supporting themselves in 4 years. But according to the Department of Education, they consider completing the program on time is if your student completes it within 150% of the published rate. That means 6 years. So the average public school graduation rate is 5.8% or 5.8 years, and the average private school graduation rate is 4.2 years. So this is another thing you got to figure out, because a school that might be a little bit more expensive per year, but your student will be out in 4 years instead of almost 6 years, in the long run could still be your cheaper option. And there are a number of different variables for why your student may take on more than 4 years to graduate, such as impacted classes, or they changed their major, or not being prepared, or not taking enough credits each semester. This is one of the things we do, is we guide the students to graduate in 4 years, or some of our students have graduated in less. It all starts with your student in their freshman year. That's right, their freshman year. We teach your student how to develop a few good habits. So your student needs to develop, namely study skills, time management, reading comprehension, and test taking. And your student should be exploring careers. They should be exploring careers that fit their personality traits, their natural attributes, their work importance factors, and of course, their passions and interests. They should be making sure that they're engaged in extracurricular activities that align with their passions or interests or complements them. And extracurricular activities, that's clubs, organizations, community service, volunteer work, athletics, both in school and in community. And your students should be taking steps to earn a leadership position by their junior year. They should also be improving their test taking skills, either with the Duke Tip program, if they qualify that when they're younger, or PSAT, SAT, and ACT. As a side note, the SAT no longer offers the optional essay portion, and they have also stopped offering the SAT subject tests. But you want to make sure that you're planning ahead to study and practice to take the proper test to earn college credits too. So here's poll number 4. Give me 1 second. Okay, so which of the following steps has your student completed to prepare for college? And this is multiple choice. And have I lost the 3 of you? Excellent. All right, so if this is one again, you can always, there we go. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so now the reason this is important is merit aid. That's scholarship money that they give your student because your student's awesome. It's determined by your student's cumulative GPA over 4 years, ACT or SAT test scores, depth of involvement in extracurricular activities over 4 years, and length and focus of community service. And we've had the unfortunate task of having to tell a family that their high school senior won't qualify for scholarships because they didn't do the work since freshman year. And unfortunately, I don't have a time machine to go back to get your student on the right path. Again, as we've mentioned, once obviously they position themselves to stand out, it's important that they pick the right schools for the right reasons, meaning that that school's an academic fit and a social fit, and at the right price, meaning that you're able, ready, and willing to pay what's to be expected. And I put them in that order for a reason. First of all, is to consider the ability to pay. Secondly, are the funds that are going to be used for college, are they going to be where you need them to be? Meaning, do you have guaranteed growth, and are they going to be liquid? And third, well, just because you're able to pay $20,000 to $80,000 a year doesn't mean you're willing to pay that. All right, let's look at the costly mistakes to avoid. And the first one, mistake number 1, is not knowing the SAI formula. If you don't know how financial need is determined, and if you don't know the difference between included income and assets and non-reportable income and assets for the purpose of filing financial aid forms, well, you should know, because where you keep your money matters. If you don't know how to legally and ethically position your money properly for the purposes of financial aid, you could end up losing thousands in financial aid. Number 2 is school choices. So if your student applies to fewer than 6 schools, the odds for a good aid package are much less than if he applies to 10. And here's the thing, the colleges, they know that it's only competing with a few schools and that your choices are restricted, so the school has a better hand. But the opposite applies too. If your student applies to more than 15 or 20 schools, the schools are going to perceive that as a smaller chance of your student selecting their school to attend, should they accept your student. So the school may hesitate in offering a spot based on the perceived probability that your student will not attend. Also, it's imperative that you pick schools where your child lies in the top 20% of the incoming freshman class with respect to their GPA, SAT, ACT scores to be eligible for merit aid. Keep in mind, there's over 6,500 accredited colleges and universities. So your student will get the same and sometimes a better education, a school that may not have an elite status, but that they're a rock star at. Mistake number 3, not applying at all. Actually, there should be a number 1. A lot of parents, for lots of reasons, don't bother to apply, but the 2 biggest are because you think you make too much money, or that your student is a straight A student, or talented or minority, so he or she's going to get a scholarship. Well, big mistake there, because there are many colleges that won't offer merit money unless you file the financial aid forms. What they'll do is they'll use that merit aid as an incentive to attract another top student to their school that did complete the financial aid forms. So if you're not completing the financial aid forms because you think that you made too much money, we can't appeal it to see if we can get you any money or to get you more money. And let's say some unfortunate event takes place, like COVID, the college won't have your information to be in the position to even reconsider helping you. 4, I got a guy. So unfortunately, CPAs and tax preparers are experts at tax planning and preparation, not financial aid planning. Give you an example. A CPA or tax preparer might suggest that you put some of the money or some of the assets in your child's name to save on taxes. And just so you know, that advice is fantastic for reducing taxes, but it will usually kill most of or all of your chances of getting financial aid. Let's put it this way. If you had a legal issue, you'd probably call a lawyer, and obviously not the one representing the other side. If you have a tax situation, you're going to be consulting a CPA first, not the IRS. So if you're going to ask for expert advice, make sure that you're asking someone that's an expert in college planning and funding, not the college's financial aid department. Okay, this leads us to the college funding retirement savings dilemma. So we know that paying for college is a very emotional concern of yours. I mean, you love your children, you want them to be successful, and you're willing to sacrifice for them financially. Many parents do, even to the point of jeopardizing their retirement nest egg. At this time, you're most likely juggling 2 financial balls, paying for your house and saving for retirement. And of course, we're going to mess things up by throwing in a 3rd ball of saving and paying for college. So now let's look at poll number 5. I told you I got a bunch of these. So do you have a plan to pay for your house, pay your mortgage off, pay for your students' college, and all the while still saving for retirement? If you do that, it's fantastic. Or you're going to be forced to be like these parents. Obviously, we're here to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. We don't want to put your retirement savings at risk. What we want to do, we want to avoid that at all costs. We want to make sure that you have a plan to be able to afford all of these without sacrificing any of them. So the first fact that you need to know is that the financial aid department's goal is to protect the assets of the college and give away as little money as possible. Your job, obviously, is to use the rules of financial aid to make your contribution to the college as small as possible. As you can see, you're in direct opposition with, your objectives are in direct opposition to those of the schools. So let's talk about tips for reducing college costs. Okay. So one of the keys to getting a discount, being a rock star. So when your student is at the top of the applicant pool, the odds of getting a discount go up appreciably. Now, we are in no way dismissing B students. There are literally thousands of schools where your B student is a top student and will be eligible for merit aid. Again, right schools for the right reasons. Demonstrate interest. Demonstrating interest is an important factor in the admissions decision of many colleges, such as American University or Boston University. Keep in mind that some schools are getting over 50,000 admissions applications. Florida State University received over 60,000 applications for approximately 7,500 spots this year. So it's imperative that your student takes steps to get noticed. Most schools are going to track every single communication with your student. And when the application comes in, admissions already knows that your student's serious. Creating leverage. This is a term relative to every college and every student regarding applying to schools in direct competition with each other. Applying to competing schools increases the chances of getting a discount or getting a better one if need be. And completing the financial aid forms. Filling out the financial aid forms is something every parent should do, including those who will get no need-based aid, because some schools won't even give merit scholarships unless you do. For example, to be eligible for any scholarships at UCF, you must complete the FAFSA. Even for their Pegasus scholarship, which is their top merit scholarship, you will not be eligible unless you complete the FAFSA. So you got to plan for financial aid before filling out financial aid forms. We recommend a minimum of 3 to 4 years before the base year. The base year, that's the year when your student is going to be an incoming college freshman. In reality, even that's considered late stage college planning. You should actually start developing a plan to pay for college as soon as your child is born. So here's what you need to know in advance. The student aid formula, or the SAI, how that's calculated, what is being assessed and how much. And some schools are different. Your private schools, because it's their money, can sometimes recalculate things the way they want to. You want to see what planning strategies are available to implement that are both prudent. That means that they're good for retirement planning also, and at the same time can increase your financial aid eligibility. And you want to determine ahead of time what forms are required by the schools, meaning do they want just the FAFSA, or do they want the FAFSA and CSS profile? Do they want a non-custodial profile if you're divorced? Do they have an institutional financial aid application? Are they wanting you to complete verification forms or tax documents or any additional forms? The more you know in advance, the better. And a really important note here, financial aid applications are going to be based on your student aid index for what's called the prior year. What does that mean? It means that the financial aid applications for 2023, that's right, for all you sophomore parents, that's going to be based on your income information from this year, 2021. So class of 2023, 2021, class of 2024, 2022, etc. And the plan is obviously to make sure that we reach both of our objectives and our goals. Our objectives are to have enough funds for college while we're saving for retirement with minimal impact on our monthly cash flow. And if the strategy is appropriate for college and retirement, it's a win-win. Our goals are to have our returns exceed the college inflation of 5% per year, where the investment has tax-deferred growth and tax-favored access for college, is favorable for financial aid, can be used for college and retirement, and has tax-favored access for retirement. Phew. So how are you expected to pay? Let's talk about the portion that you're going to have to pay now. Once you figure out what you're going to have to pay, let's figure out how to pay it. Previously mentioned, it's a juggling act. So there are 5 ways to pay for college. First one is you can pay with income. Your earnings are income. This means that you'll need to examine your budget in advance to determine how much from your pay you can devote monthly. Where are you going to find that money? You need to kind of figure that out in advance. You want to take out your cash, your investments, or your piggy bank. The bad part about this is that the disbursement will show up on your tax return and artificially raise your adjusted gross income for that year, which will raise your student aid index. But if you do this before, remember we talked about the base year. So if you do this before your base year, put it into an account that's out of the financial aid formula, it's a win-win. Colleges won't see it because it's a different year for the tax documents, and the wherever you move it to is out of the financial aid formula, so it's a win-win. You can use your home equity to pay for college. Many top universities, just so you know, are going to add your equity when determining your contribution. Again, this is going to artificially raise your adjusted gross income and in turn your student aid index. But if you do this before your base year, put it in an account that's out of the financial aid formula, it's a win-win.
Barbara, I lost you there for a little while earlier on the
Oh.
previous two slides before this one. I don't know if it was your system or if it was my system, but just to let you know. So go back to the next, go forward to the next one. Forward.
Sorry,
Forward.
I know.
Yep.
I didn't lose her, so maybe it was you.
All right, Chandrell, Sarah, Woodland, you all okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Awesome. Okay. So you heard this one, and the equity, again, we want to work with that before your base year. And then loans. Now I mentioned loans because it is something to consider sometimes. Your student, though, is, even though they're eligible for student loans each year, it's not that much. Your freshman year is only $5,500, sophomore year $6,500, and junior and senior year $7,500. So I know right now you did some quick math and you're figuring, how can student loans get up so heavy? Because you need to also figure in the interests. Even though the student loans are deferred, meaning that you don't pay them until your student stops matriculating, the interest still accrues. So if you don't have a plan to pay the interest quarterly or annually or whatever, it's added back to the principal, and then you're going to be charged interest on the interest the next year.
And just as an FYI, when I went to college, we called 5,500. We called that beer money.
Yes, miscellaneous expenses. We call that concert tickets, beer, and pizza. And the last one is retirement. And I list that as a way to pay because there's always someone that comes up afterwards and asks, saying, hey, you know, my financial advisor, they told me that I can take a loan against my retirement and get a disbursement without any penalties. And that is correct. You can. However, you have to keep in mind, now you're depleting your retirement account. And I've heard many times you can borrow for college, but you can't borrow for retirement. And of course, you probably want scholarships and grants. And I have a feeling that's why you're participating in this workshop. And for scholarships, again, that's based on your student. And they need to be spending their 4 years in high school, positioning themselves to be eligible. So it's not something you can come to us when they're a senior. Okay, so we've been talking about saving. So now let me tell you, you may be penalized for savings. So a couple of them, like Department of Education, assumes that any assets that you have outside of retirement plans must be for expenditures like college. 12% of your investments will count towards your student aid index. This includes 529 plans. Now, a 529 plan, it's a tax-free college savings plan. And if you use it for saving for college and it grows and you cash that money out and use it for qualified educational expenses, then the growth is completely tax-free. How does that sound? I mean, anything that has to do with tax-free and not paying the federal government, I'm all about. So let's take a little poll here and hold on one second. And so who amongst you has a 529 plan? Okay, so while you're looking at that, so the federal government says, basically, I got a really good plan for you. Save money for college like a good parent. You can have the money tax-free on the gain and everybody wins. And the parents go, yay, we love that. But that's the IRS's rules. So now the Department of Education, because next thing you're going to do is you're going to stand in line to apply for financial aid. And what does the Department of Education say about your 529 plan? Well, you really should have saved your money because that's going to drive your student aid index up. 12% of the 529 plan will count towards your expected contribution, costing you $12,000 a year and lost financial aid. So this is one of those situations when understanding how they come up with their formula and calculating how it affects your student aid index early is going to benefit you. I'm going to take it a step further. So many of the private schools are going to move that asset because their money, their rule, out of the parent's name and put it in the child's name. And why do they do that? Well, who's the 529 plan for? The student, right? So the college now is going to come back and say, no, I don't care what the Department of Education says. That is an asset for the student to go to college. And the formula says that the student's assets are calculated at 20%. And that's not all. Let's look at the plan itself. So the good. First of all, 529 plans provide your tax deferred growth. And if the stock market's doing well, you have unlimited upside potential. And you can contribute up to $418,000 per beneficiary. Obviously, well over the $320,000 for undergraduate study. Good thing you can use it for either high school or grad school, med school, or law school. Now, the bad. The bad is you can only make changes once a year. So if you're invested in a product that goes down, there's nothing you can do till your anniversary. Plus 529 plans can only be used after all other options. So after merit aid, after grants, after tax credits, after Florida prepaid, after everything. And of course, the ugly is if the stock market does poorly, you have an unlimited downside potential. Plus, as I said, 529 plans are counted against you in the financial aid formula at 12%. So unless your plan, excuse me, has made more than 12%, not only have you unnecessarily raised your student aid index, but you've lost money. Plus, educational savings plans may charge enrollment application fees, annual account maintenance fees, ongoing program management fees, ongoing asset management fees, along with tax penalties if the disbursement's used incorrectly. Now, before you walk out of here tonight and go to the bank and rip out your 529 plans, remember it's circumstantial. It's based on your family's circumstances. So if you have a 529 plan, you want to see how it's affecting you and what you should do, please don't hesitate to schedule an initial consultation so we can have a chat with you about it. Okay. So now let's talk about Florida prepaid. So let's take another poll. How many of you have Florida prepaid plan? Well, before I lead you astray, let me just say, this is one of the best return on investments that you have. And if you paid for housing too, you're way ahead. But keep in mind, Florida prepaid only covers part of the bill. And this is for in-state public universities. So there's still the cost of housing, there's still meal plans, books and supplies, personal expenses, miscellaneous costs. That portion is actually about 65% to 75% of the bill. Now, keep in mind that Florida prepaid plan is an investment. So as an investment, it will be assessed at 12% towards your expected contribution. A little bit of good news, though, is as an investment, it is not a state plan. So you can use the value of, whatever the value is at any school, public or private, in state or out of state. So I always like to leave you with a little bit of good news. Okay. It's all about being an informed buyer. So let's look at gift money. So gift money can reduce financial aid eligibility, not reduce what you're gonna have to pay, but reduce how much they're going to give you. So how? So let's pretend that you have a relative that intends on helping pay for college. So you need to take a couple things into consideration. If the money is gifted to your student, it's then considered a student asset, which the student aid index assesses at 25%. So $10,000 is going to add another $2,000 to $2,500 to your student aid index. Excuse me. Examples of these type of accounts are like UTMAs or UGMAs. Perhaps you have established a trust. They are all included in a financial aid formula. Now, if the relative sends the money to the school will thank them emphatically, turn to you, and ask for your portion. However, if you have the relative give the money to you, you deposit it in your account, you then pay the school from your account. Well, now you just paid $10,000 towards your expected contribution. Well done. So we've been talking now about what does count towards your expected contribution. You should know that there are assets that are not counted towards your expected contribution. You want to familiarize yourself with asset strategies. I'm sorry, did someone have a question? No, okay. Asset strategies that will effectively lower your student aid index. This can be reallocating the funds to an asset that's not assessed by the Department of Education, such as retirement accounts, permanent life insurance, annuities, just to name a few. Here's another one of my favorite little things, personal items. So this is the time to buy that new large screen home theater system or things you're going to buy anyways, get the roof done. It's going to lower your cash and savings, which will lower your student aid index. But wait, we've been focusing on the cost of undergraduate education for only one child. Remember, there are other things to consider. One, is your student interested in pursuing a master's degree or an MBA or become a lawyer or a doctor? Well, that's another 2 to 4 years with little to no need-based assistance other than loans. What if you have more than one student? Well, you got to be planning. While you're doing the planning, you got to factor in funds for their college too. And once upon a time, we were taught to have enough in savings to cover 3 months' salary or in case of an emergency, such as losing your job or a pandemic. And we must make sure that you're covered for short-term care and long-term care. And this is all while still planning for retirement. Now, here's the thing with planning for retirement. The life expectancy has increased dramatically, 1% each year. So you need to plan to have enough income to support yourselves. You want to make sure that you have enough retirement funds to support you until you're at least 80. So our final little poll here. So which of the following circumstances are you prepared for? And answer the ones that apply to you. See, here's the thing. We want you to have the security of being prepared for any of these unforeseen circumstances. And a lot of times we've talked about one of the reasons families don't apply for financial aid is that you believe that your income is too high. Well, what if that is the actual case? What if you make too much money? Well, there's a couple of things that you need to know about that. Just because you can afford the cost of attendance doesn't mean that you want to pay full retail price. So with some inventive strategies and planning, you can make your money work for you to provide you with funds for college. This requires a full cash flow analysis and financial analysis. Some of the areas where you can take advantage of the financial aid rules: savings, cash flow, income and asset planning, several strategies that apply to business owners. I could probably talk 2 hours just on that. Tax planning, loans. As long as it's legal, moral, ethical, and it can fit into your family's long-term strategies, it might make sense to look at these options as well. Just because you make decent money doesn't mean you're out of the world of getting help for college. You just may be looking at that strategically from a different direction. See, because the cumulative benefit of implementing a variety of strategies, it can often yield a greater savings to your family on total out-of-pocket college costs than can financial aid. And the great thing about the strategies are they're more predictable ahead of time, and they are under your control, as opposed to being controlled by the school with respect to financial aid. So I'm sure we're all going, phew, that's a lot. So let's talk about your next steps. So ask yourself, what's important to your family? We found that parents look at the whole process with concern. Sure, you want your student to be independent, happy, and successful. Many of you are under the impression or assumption that if your child doesn't get into what you think of as the right college, that they won't be able to succeed. So finding a college can take on a special meaning. And of course, what parent doesn't want their child to get lots of scholarships? And you might have said to your child, you do the work, we'll figure a way to pay. And then they have the audacity to actually get into a top school. So now reality is starting to sink in, and you may be rethinking that promise. Well, you'd like to keep that promise without sacrificing your retirement. And of course, we would like you to do that too. You may not always say it, but what you really want for is help. And hope is not a plan. It doesn't pay the bills, and planning and preparation pays the bills. And when hope fails, debt happens. So no matter what you do now, you need to answer the following questions. One, what have they done to determine what career, occupation, or major interests them? What are they doing what are you going to do or are you going to be expected to pay for college? And how prepared are you for paying that amount for college? So those are the questions that you really need to be asking yourself. So you might ask, couldn't we just do this ourselves? Absolutely. Just as long as you're willing to become an expert in the admissions process and also its impact on financial aid, as well as the thousands of pages of rules and regulations required to take full advantage of the process. Each family is unique, and it takes an experienced financial aid specialist to know how to advise you. So you should have your plan on how to pay in place by the time your student's a freshman. And your student should start preparing their freshman year also. So now, if you're interested in seeing how all of this applies to you, you can schedule your initial consultation. All you have to do is just in chat or whatever, let us know, and we will make sure. And Chandrell, we will go ahead and get in touch with you. Not a problem. You can reach out to us by calling our office between 10 and 7. That is 833-473-3631, which is 833 Green 1. You can book through our website by clicking on Book Online. So either way, you can schedule an initial evaluation. So it's our genuine pleasure to share this time with you. I know I went a couple minutes over. I hope you did get a lot of information out of it. And so at this time, I'm actually going to finish with a rhetorical question. Which do you choose, to be an informed or an uninformed buyer? While we open it up for any questions that you have for us, these are some available dates and times for your initial consultation. So one of these dates and times is convenient for you, please let us know in the chat so I can make sure that we do that. But Sarah and Woodland, do you have any questions or anything that I didn't answer that you had a question on?
No, you seem to covered a lot of information that I was uneducated about. But right now,
You're good. Go ahead. And what grade is your student?
well, my daughter, she's in the 6th grade right now. She's in the
Okay.
6th grade, and I have a middle schooler and an elementary schooler.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. And
So
Sarah,
good, great information to basically, prepare for the upcoming, few years, things that I need to do. I will definitely be getting in contact with you guys.
okay, very good. And yeah, we'll schedule a time to talk and see where you are in the process. And if we can help, we'll let you know that. And if we can't, we'll let you know that too. Now, obviously we can't work with everyone. There's only 24 hours in the day, and I don't see that changing. Sarah, do you have any questions I didn't answer or anything that popped up that because of something I said?
Sarah's quiet.
Yep, she's been quiet tonight. All right, well then if I don't have any questions, we will contact you guys probably either tomorrow or Tuesday. And that way, if your question happens to be a confidential one about your specific circumstances and you don't want to share, totally get that. So we'll give you a call just to, again, thank you for attending and anything, and possibly answer if you're interested in an initial consultation. We can discuss it at that point. So I'm going to end the meeting. Thank you guys so much for attending. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Can our guys stick around for a second?
Sure. I was going to say, I had a feeling